Welcome to Holistic Horseworks Talks. Join us with founder April Love as we talk about equine care. Learn what you can do to keep your horse happy, healthy, rideable, and sound through their 30s. Have a question you'd like to submit to the podcast? Just email April at holistichorseworks.com for a chance to get it featured on the next episode.
Hi, this is Lillian. I'm here with April Love. April, you always talk about the high-low hoof syndrome, and I'm wondering if you can tell me more about what that is and what people can do about it.
And that is a great question. All the vets and the farriers have been chasing that for years. And the answer came to me in a roundabout way. When I do my bodywork program, within 6 weeks to about 3 months, the owners report back to me that the farrier wants to know what changed because he can now trim and balance the feet the same angles. And, what changed? They've been trying to wedge and everything. And if people don't know what high and low hoof syndrome means, it means that if you squat down beside your horse's front legs and you look at the hairline, the coronary band, and you compare them, the left front to the right front or whatever side that you're on, you'll see one slopes more down to the ground. That's called a low angle. That can be anywhere from 50 degrees to 53 degrees if they put the hoof angle on it. And if you look at the other hoof, it's more parallel, more even to the ground, not sloping to the ground. So there's actually more heel there. And that would be like 55, 56, 57 degrees, sometimes as steep as 60 degrees if they put the hoof angle iron on it. And then if you think about that, everyone's like, yeah, well, my horse has that, but he seems to be okay. Sometimes they'll wedge the lower foot, which means putting a pad on that's thicker, that's thin by the sole and thicker by the heel to bring that up to be the same angles. And the reason that that is important is think about if you're standing all day and walking and exercising, and your left foot had a flat tennis shoe sole and your right foot had a wedge heel. How is that angle going to shift in your ankles, your knees, and your hips? And if one hip is higher, how is that going to compress in your lumbar spine area, L4, L5, because one hip is always higher? And then how can your spine and neck stay in alignment if your hips are at that angle? So people don't think it matters as much in a horse, but think about it. One shoulder is higher. And the side that is got the highest heel, if you actually watch them walk slowly, the low heel usually strides out and lands heel to toe, and the high-heeled side usually strides out and lands toe to heel. So you have biomechanical imbalances higher up in the neck and shoulder, not allowing both front feet to land evenly. And the long-term ramifications of this is the foot that's jamming and loading is creating more heat, and the body sends calcium to heat to lock it down, and that's arthritis. So that's side bone, ring bone, arthritic knees and shoulders, because that whole leg can't move correctly. And the cause of all that, what we have found, is the first rib misalignment, not allowing that shoulder to move correctly. So if it's on the right side, first rib misalignment is going to make that side land toe to heel. And the horse is going to put out the left front foot when it grazes as a foal, young horse, older horse, because the right shoulder can't move forward as freely past that first rib impingement. So the horse that always has one front leg out forward, like the left one, is going to be the low heel, and the foot that's always back is going to be the high heel. The horse's hooves grow. It's a live thing, the pressure, how it lands, so if they're not standing on it correctly, When your horse is tied to the trailer, in its stall, or standing in the field, or the cross ties, pay attention to how they're standing. Both front feet should be side by side when they're at rest. If you always have one foot in front of the other when they're in the pasture, not in cross ties, not in riding mode, then you have issues higher up in ribs and withers, and that's going to create how the hooves are going to grow. If a horse has a really tight sternum and pectoral muscles and is pulling the heels with the front end, that's going to create the underslung inside heel that jams, and you can never grow an inside heel. And the farrier will try to leave extra shoe to protect the heel to grow down. But if you don't chase it higher up into how the body is loading the hoof, you're never going to actually change the hoof. One of my endurance clients had bought this endurance horse of impeccable bloodlines, but all the high-tech professionals had passed on him because he had high-low hoof syndrome. They said as a 100-mile horse, he'd break down, wouldn't last, those kind of things, because the front hooves are not in balance. And when you're trotting downhill and doing all those miles, your feet have to be in balance. So we did all the body work, and all of a sudden she was in the top 10s and getting best condition horse. And the friends and people and community that had known about this horse as a young horse and passed on him, and she got him for a very affordable price. They're like, well, where did the high-low go? And she goes, oh, as soon as April started working on him, within 6 to 8 weeks, the farrier said he could trim the hooves evenly now. And all my clients reporting back to me that the farrier said the feet have totally changed in 6 weeks. I've heard this hundreds of times, and I'm like, wow. So what's going on up above really does matter in how the blood flow is, how the horse is landing on that hoof. Unfortunately, nowadays, I don't know if it's mineral deficiency in the hays and grains, but our horses seem to be weaker somehow and not holding their alignment. And the past 6 to 8 years, when first rib misalignment used to only be on one side of the horse, we're now seeing it on both sides of the horse by the time the horse is 3 years old. So if you watch my videos and read my books, you'll see that first rib misalignment comes out in horses if the foal tumbles in the pasture, running through a mud bog. When they're on that lead and that front leg gets sucked down, as the body's going forward, it tweaks that rib. It's not that the rib's poking out. It's just that it's moved and shifted and is not allowing that shoulder to come through freely anymore. That's a horse that if he's on the right side, first rib misalignment, doesn't want to take right lead canter. On a barrel racing horse, that would be 2 awesome turns to the right, but he can't come around the barrel to the left because he can't get that shoulder around the rib to make that left turn. Unfortunately, what we're seeing nowadays is a lot of kissing spine. And when I release both first ribs and the owners keep up the body work and do the yoga, we've had vets say with x-rays that the kissing spine has gone away. So that's showing me that both first ribs misaligned is making both shoulders harder to come up to canter, and that's going to change your gaits. It's going to be a lumbering canter. And they're having to use a rhomboid and trapezius neck muscles to pick up and move the shoulders. So both front feet are landing toe to heel instead of heel to toe. And that can actually act like navicular in a horse, like heel pain, when it's actually coming up from the neck and shoulder. And you'll notice if you really look at the profile of your horse's neck seems shorter and the back seems longer, because they have to throw all the way back to the psoas muscle under the rear of the saddle that ties into the hocks to pick up the heavy front end for the rider. So if your horse is heavy on the front end, you might want to do my diagnostic video where I teach you for free on YouTube how to check for first rib misalignment. And then in my level 1 equine musculoskeletal unwinding video, that is a digital download. You immediately get the video, you immediately get the workbook. And it comes with a 8-page distance reading report from me where you email in left and right side pictures. And I tell you everything that's going on with the horse, skeletal wise, what side needs to be released. Is there any bacterial and viral issues, autoimmune health issues, environmental issues? It's a really intensive, like medical, intuitive reading of your horse. And people are amazed. Horses that were told to be put down by the vet, the owner fixed it themselves within 6 weeks, just following my program and the protocols that we do, which is detox the horse, balance the body, get their energy and healing turned on, and then just maintain it. So while your first session might take an hour or two to get through, it really should only be 5 to 6 minutes a day of maintaining before you ride your horse. If we can catch everything before we tack up and ride the horse, then you're going to have less compensations that create the arthritic changes that shorten the horse's usable riding years. If we start working on foals by the time of 5-6 months, when the feet are already starting to change because of the first rib and which foot they put out, you can have a horse that's rideable all the way up to like age 40. So I have a free ebook, www.horseacademy101.com. My website is holistichorseworks.com, and my YouTube channel is holistichorseworks.com. So I hope you'll visit me, call me, and email me. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Holistic Horseworks Talks with April Love. Remember to check the show notes for links to all the resources mentioned in this episode. Have a question you'd like to submit to the podcast? Email April at holistichorseworks.com for a chance to get it featured on the next episode. Loved this information? Share it with your horse friends. They'll find it helpful too. To learn more, visit holistichorseworks.com. And before you go, make sure you have a copy of our free ebook, Horse 101, Everything You Wish You Had Known Before You Got Your First Horse, at horseacademy101.com.